look at chapter 8, and chapter 8 is going to be an entire chapter on polynomials. So monomials was our focus of the last 2 weeks. We worked on a couple of sections in chapter 7, and now we're going to do chapter 8, and we're going to do all of chapter 8. So if you recall, I mentioned a couple of weeks back that we're looking at kind of the power standards, so the really important parts of Algebra 1 that we want you to get before the end of the school year. And so we're looking at, in this first section, so the whole chapter is about polynomials. How do you add them, subtract them, multiply? How do you factor them? And how can the factoring of a polynomial help you solve an equation where you've got the highest exponent of 2? So you have an x squared in the equation, not just an x. So this first section, section 8.1, I take you through a short lesson there. I'm actually going to put a little stopwatch on for myself because I tend to get a little bit wordy, right? So, okay. All right, so we're going to be looking at section 8.1, okay, polynomials. And these notes are on Schoology, all filled in so you can see my work. And then you could also print out a blank one for yourself if you'd rather fill it in for yourself, okay? So we're going to look at what is it. So what is a polynomial? So a polynomial is going to be either a number or a variable, right? So it's a monomial, or it's a sum or difference of many monomials. So examples would be just a number, or just, a variable with a term, or maybe a sum of monomials, okay? And so when we look at what a monomial is, okay, I'm just going to pull this back a little bit there. We could make sure that it is a sum or difference of monomials, okay? And so this first one, -4, would be a monomial, and it would just be one term. So we're going to talk about is it a polynomial, and what is its name, and what is its degree. So that's going to be something new. All right, so is it a polynomial? Well, yes, if it is a monomial or sum of monomials, okay? So yes, it is, okay? It's just one term, so you would call that a monomial. And this is kind of weird, a degree of a polynomial, okay? First, you're going to have to look at the highest degree, okay? So a constant, right, doesn't have a variable in it. So technically, if you wanted to put a variable, you'd have to put x to the 0 power, because that equals 1. So any constant like this is going to have a degree of 0, okay? If you have 3x, you have 3x to the first. So yes, it's a polynomial because it's a monomial or sum of monomials. So this one is also a monomial. I can't spell monomial. Monomial. And its degree now, right? You have x to the first. So x to the first, that would have a degree of 1. Okay? And then the last one down here, hope you guys can see this, right? You've got x squared plus 3x. That is a polynomial because it is a monomial or a sum of monomials. Its name would be, because there's 2 terms, right? 2, the prefix for 2 is bi. So this would be called a binomial. And its degree, because this has a degree of 2, x squared, 3x has a degree of 1, So the degree of the entire polynomial would be the highest degree of the two. You got degree 1 and degree 2, so it would be degree 2. So you could say that is a second degree binomial. Okay. Now, for some of these problems, and it's going to be rare, but if you had something with more than one variable, like let's say you had an x and a y, all right, so let me make up an example of that. All right, so we got some examples here. So let's say we had 2xy minus 4x squared y. Okay, technically this is a polynomial because it's a sum of monomials, right? A monomial is a number, a variable, or a product of numbers and variables where you don't have negative exponents. And so, yes, it's a polynomial. It has two terms, so that would be binomial. And its degree is a little bit weird here. So this is something more when you get to more complex problems like this in Algebra 2, you should know. xy is x to the first, y to the first. So this has a degree of 2. This is x squared y. 2 plus 1 is 3. So this has degree 3. So this polynomial would have degree 3 because it's the higher of the two. Okay. One more before we go on here. What if I had 5x to the negative 1 plus 4 minus 2x? Okay. When I look at this problem, right, I've got 5x to the negative 1. That's not a monomial. 4 is a monomial, and negative 2x is a monomial. But because the first term is not a monomial because of the negative exponent here, this is not a polynomial. And so I'm not going to even name it or give it a degree. Okay? So a polynomial is a monomial or a sum of monomials. What can you do with a polynomial? Well, besides finding its degree and naming it, so that's all about classifying it, right? You can put it in what we call standard form. You've heard of standard form before. When we did equations of lines, we had standard form. And so standard form for a polynomial is when you have it organized in descending order of degree. All right, so these are examples of polynomials in standard form. 2x squared minus 3x plus 1. See how it goes down? 2, 1, degree 0. Negative 3x to the fourth minus 2x to the third plus 5x minus 4. See how the exponents go down 4, 3, right? And if it's not in that, order, you can move the terms around. Okay, just be careful. Make sure the coefficient and its sign goes with it, right? So you want to have polynomials in this standard form, and this first term, so that term with the highest degree, tells us a lot about the polynomial. It tells me that it is a degree 4 polynomial. And this term right here, so the whole term, right, this is called the leading term, which makes sense, right, because it's the first term. And that leading term has a coefficient, and the coefficient of the leading term, of leading term. Some people call this the leading coefficient, right? The coefficient of that leading term in this case is -3. So that's going to become important as we look at graphs of these polynomials, which will be more of a focus for Algebra 2. But as with any language, algebra is a language, we should start kind of using it and learning about what it is. Okay. All right, so now we know what a polynomial is, right? It's a sum or difference of monomials. It could just be a monomial. And we know what the standard form looks like, and we know how to identify the degree. Now we're going to look at what it would mean to add and subtract them. So if you are adding or subtracting, and let's say we had a trinomial, plus another trinomial, there's a couple of different ways you can do this. Okay, as always, I would encourage you to use which strategy works best for you. Okay, so some people like to work horizontally. They can visually like rearrange terms and combine like terms. So just like an x and a y are not like terms, an x squared and an x are not like terms, because those would be different values, right? X and x squared would be the same if x were 1, but for any other value, right, or I guess 0, for any other value, they're going to be different, right? So we can't add an x and an x squared together, but we can add an x squared plus an x squared. So you can work with this horizontally, right, and kind of group together the like terms, move them around, right, because this is addition. We can just really drop away these parentheses. Be careful, the sign goes with it, right? Okay. So some people like to work horizontally and move the terms around. And now we combine the coefficients just as we would if we just had an x or a y or an a or a b, right? The term, the x squared just comes along for the ride, okay? Plus 4 minus 6 is -2, so I guess I could write that as minus 2x. And -4 plus 8 is +4. Okay? So when we add two trinomials, sometimes we get another trinomial. Okay? Now some people work better vertically, so think about how you add numbers, how you line up the place values. So it's kind of the same idea. So some people like to work vertically, and they like to organize it like this. So it's nice when they're both already in standard form. Right, they like to work vertically because now everything is aligned and organized, right? So if you were to add these, right, you can see the coefficients organized, and of course you get the same answer. Okay, so it's not too bad because it's really just adding like terms, and we've done that. Okay, last problem here, and I'm going to get in just under the wire for my goal here. All right, if we were to subtract, so here's where sometimes students get into some trouble. Okay, if we were to subtract, let me make up 5y squared plus 6y minus 4y squared minus 8y. Okay, and we could have a constant here, but I've got two binomials, okay? We are subtracting this entire quantity, all right? So some students like to change this to addition of the opposite sign. and then combine like terms. So change subtraction to addition and change every sign that comes after. So it's kind of like you're distributing that -1 through. Okay. So if you did that, you could then organize it vertically or horizontally. I'm a big fan of the vertical. I think visually it helps me. And get your final answer. Okay? So take a look at that, work it through, and come back and see me in a Zoom meeting.